Our jewelry making workshop continues with Easy Does It today on Beads, Baubles and Jewels.
Beads, Baubles and Jewels has been brought to you in part by Beading Daily, your jewelry making resource for how-to projects, books, magazines, DVDs, events, and online learning. BeadingDaily.com. Beadalon, a manufacturer of flexible bead stringing wires, memory wire, artistic wire, stringing materials, innovative findings, and tools to help you fashion your own jewelry. Beadalon.com. Dreamtime Creations, an online supplier of crystals, findings, and jewelry making supplies since 1989. DreamtimeCreations.com. Halcraft, jewelry component manufacturer. Halcraft.com.
Even complicated-looking designs don't have to be hard. Hi, I'm Katie Hacker, and when you have the right design tips, you can make your jewelry making easier and add the right teacher to make all the difference. Kate Richbourg is our first teacher. You'll be impressed by how simple it is to make patterns by soldering dots. Then, Laura Timmons is back with a bead soup memory wire bracelet. What could be easier? Next, it's today's jewelry making workshop and embellishing hoop earrings using seed beads and wire. Finally, Candie Cooper has a simple men's bracelet with leather and silver. So let's begin with Kate. I'm here with designer and author Kate Richbourg. Welcome, Kate.
Hi, how are you, Katie?
Yeah, great. And I love the sampler that you're doing this series. So I'm really excited about today's, which is granules and dots.
That's right.
And you always have great ideas for simple soldering.
Well, simple soldering's kind of my thing. I want to bring soldering to the world.
I love it.
So yes, the granules and dots, I use them all the time in my pieces. So this is the little sampler that we're actually going to be doing. And I think it's really a great way to embellish the little granules and the dots.
Yeah, it really takes your designs to the next level too. Just a little bit of extra, like this ring, where it has kind of the look of rivets, but this is actually a piece that you soldered on.
Yeah, and the little dots are right there, and they're like little faux rivets. I think they look terrific.
Me too. And the dots too, that dresses it right up.
Yeah, the little granules right here, these actually, I think just add kind of a little flair, you know,
right.
Instead of adding like a little jewel, just put a granule on it.
Love it. And this one has the big ones.
Yeah, this one has those nice big granules on it so you can really see them. But they're all done in the same way regardless of what size the granule is.
Okay, well how do we get started?
Well, for the granules, I actually use some fine silver wire, and the gauge doesn't really matter. You can use whatever gauge you'd like. This is a heavier, maybe like a 14 gauge.
But it will affect the size, right? So if you want to end up with a little bit bigger granule, you would need to start out with a larger size of wire.
Right, or just cut yourself a longer piece of wire as well.
Okay.
So just kind of experiment around. I really say just use the scrap that you have out of your little scrap bin. And so you just want to cut that wire up in little pieces with your wire cutter. And I've come over here onto my soldering surface, my kiln brick, and I've laid those granules out just like so, or those little wires that are going to become the granules. I've laid them right out here. And so you know how you don't really want to melt your wire or melt your metal when you're soldering? This time we do. So we're going to melt these up. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on my butane microtorch. We're going to slide this on here. And we're just going to come on right on down, and I'm going to hit that little piece of fine silver wire with the flame of my torch. And you're going to see it start to really glow. And see how it balls up right on itself?
Yes.
When that fine silver heats, it just draws itself up into a little ball. So there's no way that you can go wrong doing this.
So if you held your torch too long, it wouldn't just go into a blob?
No, it would just, see how if I just keep it there and keep it there, it just still stays in that ball.
That is neat.
Isn't it cool? The wire just wants to ball up into little
so
guys.
I just want to point out the safety tips. We are wearing our glasses, and you're working on a heat-resistant surface.
That's exactly right, and we want to make sure to have our little fire extinguisher nearby.
So just water.
Just in case. Just water, and I've just quenched them right in my little water bowl. And you can see here I have some granules ready to go for our next step. So once we've gone ahead and worked with that fine silver and balled those guys up, I'm going to turn my kiln brick over so it's nice and cool.
And you don't polish them or anything before you solder?
No, exactly, because with fine silver, they're nice and shiny.
Great.
So what I've done here is we can look at the little tile. Now I've prepared this for my granules. And what I did was, and this is the key, this is the trick, I've made a little divot here with my, I made a little center punch with an old nail. I just filed it down. And all I do is I place that nail wherever I want a granule, and I go ahead and I strike it with a hammer. And of course I do that on a bench block, not on my kiln brick.
Right.
But it just makes a little place for my granules to rest.
Okay, so it's kind of like you're piercing. It's not piercing through, but it's a little bit starter.
Making a little place for them to sit. So yeah, it gives it a nice little indentation. And so now I pick up my little granule very carefully with my tweezers, and I'm going to go ahead. I used paste solder for this
because it adheres a little bit more.
Yeah, and it makes it stick, just
easier to handle.
Easier to handle. So I've got my, you can see my paste solder is right on there. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to carefully just drop it down.
So you just want to make sure that you get it in that indentation.
Right, and if I need to coax it a little bit, I can use my solder pick or my tweezers.
Okay.
And I would just continue to place these on. And you know, I always make a few extra granules, Katie, because sometimes when I pinch these granules with my tweezers, they want to go flying off into space. So
if you have some extras, you're prepared for
yeah,
emergencies.
Exactly. It's always a good thing. And so you just coax them along. You just place them in and put them where you want.
Okay.
So shall we?
Yes.
Shall we go for it?
Let's solder them.
Now, just in a similar manner that you did with your making your granules, we're going to turn on our torch. And we're just going to slowly bring that torch on down to the tile. And this is one of the sampler tiles. And I'm just going to come in, and now I'm really, see how they settle? There they go. Boom, and we're done.
And you know it's done.
Yeah, because we saw that solder run, and we are good to go. Now here comes the fun part where we just quench it. And you can see, yeah, I'm going to grab it out there. And you can see our little granules.
So cool, I love it.
So
really
super
simple.
easy.
Yeah. And so if you wanted to do dots like you did on your sampler,
yeah,
it's a similar technique,
It's a similar technique. All I do is I get a little piece of scrap metal, and I use my screw down hole punch here to cut little dots out of that metal. And they're real teeny, but that same thing as you did with granules. I would just come in, put a little bit of solder, paste solder right on the back, and then just place them around wherever I wanted in a pattern that was nice. And you can see here on this ring band, that's what I did. And it just looks like a little faux rivet, you know, it's kind of cool.
It does, and I really like how you made the daisy design on this sampler square.
Yeah.
That is so cute. And in your book, you had some samples using that pattern as a motif, which I think is a great idea.
On, you know, like in my little ring, I have them right here in the center. So I think they just add kind of a nice little flair to what's going on.
They do. And does it matter really quickly? Does it matter what metal you cut that out of?
No, not at all. You can use any of the jewelry metals, copper, brass, silver, it all works. Thickness, whatever you like.
Thank you so much, Kate. And we will be right back. I'm here with Laura Timmons, designer for Dreamtime Creations and Beadle on Design Team.
Yes,
welcome, Laura.
Yes, thank you.
You're
Great
welcome.
pleasure to be here.
And today you're going to show us bead soup bracelets. I love this idea.
Well, very simple technique, but I love the idea of bead soup anyways. We always have those leftover beads.
Yes.
What to do with all those leftover beads.
And this tray is so appealing. It's so beautiful. You can pick any of these.
Yeah, oh, you can. I mean, any gorgeous glass container. I mean, anything to kind of hold your precious components. And like I said, it's just a fun way. It's actually a great even display to have in your studio as well.
Sure.
So, but you know, we just have all kinds of fun, crazy beads in there. So, you know, as far as just making the bracelet though, there's no like specific combination or, you know, you just start feeding them on.
Just pick your favorites.
Yes.
And I always encourage people to leave it in the coil as you're beading.
Yes, yes, definitely. It's much easier to string the beads on even and just kind of let them slide down and coil down. Now this piece I've kind of stepped up a notch. You know, I got to give a little bit more bling. So I've added some of the crystal mesh to it.
So
and I'm
pretty.
actually going to demonstrate for you how to do that. But first we need to cut our mesh. I'm cutting 4 rows wide.
And how did you decide how wide to cut it?
Just wide enough so that it will wrap around the bead.
Okay.
And I've got 10 rows deep, and this is going to go around a 10mm pearl.
Okay.
Okay.
So if we're using 8mm, then you would just cut it a little bit shorter.
Yeah, just a little bit shorter. I'm going to take this adhesive off to show you the sparkly crystal underneath, but leaving that adhesive on really helps you, it guides you. It actually makes it much easier to cut
And
the
it comes
mesh.
that way with the
And it comes
clear
this
strip
way.
on it,
Yes,
right?
it does. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the last row of my mesh and feed that on. I've got a 10mm bead here that I'm feeding on as well.
And I like how you're using the monochromatic color palette too there
I
with the shades
know.
of green.
I love doing a monochromatic palette, but then, you know, some of the multicolored ones are just as pretty. So I've got the second half of my mesh on there. I'm just going to slide that down.
Okay.
The bigger the bead, the more you can have to work with it a little bit to get it around your memory wire. Just sliding that into place. I'm just going to place a couple more beads on here, and then I'll show you how to finish off your piece.
Okay.
But there again, instant gratification jewelry. Very
Definitely quick.
simple, fun, and always therapeutic. And these, of course, are special cutters as well. You don't want to just pick up any cutter to cut your memory wire,
Right,
because it is
yeah.
a very, very hard wire, and you will mar your good cutters, which we've all done before.
Yes.
So you want to use those. Just clip that. I've got round nose pliers here. I'm just going to make a little curl at the end. Kind of
Great.
back down towards that bead.
This makes a great girls' night out project too.
Oh,
You
so
know, have
much
a bunch
fun.
of friends over and use your bead stash here and just get.
Oh, definitely. Great girls' slumber party, you know. Okay, I'm going to add just a couple of fun beads on here. And I'm going to do a little wire wrap because, you know, every piece of jewelry we make, there's always an additional opportunity for embellishment. So we are going to feed that onto the end of the bracelet. And obviously you can wire wrap it prior to adding that curl to the end and then just curl it in there. But
You know what? I do it the way you did too, where I loop it first just so that nothing falls off, and then I make my dangles too. But you're right. Maybe a little prior planning there.
Yes.
I could do.
I know.
Make my wraps ahead of time.
And you know, I always find it important to mention too, when you're creating a wire wrap, always make sure that you're just moving your tool. You're not really bending your wire, because that can weaken the wire that you have. I'm just moving my tool basically around that little wire wrap just to kind of smooth it in into its base, so that those little
You
ends
don't
of
have any
it.
snags there.
Right, exactly. So then we've got,
That looks so pretty with the mesh wrapped around the pearls. I love that.
well, there again, it gives a little bit more movement, a little bit more sparkle, and then it's just, it's ready to wear. And you know, okay, can you find a bracelet that's any easier to put on? You know,
right.
I mean,
you don't have
that's,
to mess with the clasp.
Oh yeah, so easy and yummy.
Definitely, so pretty. And let's take a look at these other
Yes.
bracelets that you brought. So start at the top here. Maybe just tell us a little bit about this one. It has some unusual shapes.
Yeah, you know, I've used some great aqualine beads that have a little bit more length to them. A few just like silver components as well to give it a, you know, just a little bit more zhuzh, a little bit more depth to the bracelet. And I always love using pearls and crystals together.
They do look
because
so
kind of
pretty.
that juxtaposition. And then, you know, I've got some other ones here too as well that, you know, I've just used a huge mix of different types of beads and even some fabric covered beads, just some really unique components to give it kind of more of a an eclectic look, I guess
Right.
you'd say.
Oh yeah.
So,
well, and you can take it either dressy or casual. I mean, you bring in the bright colors and everything, and this gives you a really casual look. If you'd like to check out some other ways to finish the ends, you can look at our past
Yes.
show.
Yes.
So, and please stay tuned for our jewelry making workshop. I'll be right back. Today's jewelry making workshop is about adding seed beads to hoop earrings for a hand beaded look. Take a look at these earrings. It's a really simple technique, but it looks great. If you look at these blue ones, you'll see that I just used some tiny little delicas and wound them on wire, and I'm going to show you how to do that in just a sec, but take a look at the difference when you use a different style of bead. These are called long magatama. It's a dagger style of bead that has a hole at the top, and those are directional, so they create this sort of pine cone effect when you coil them around the earring hoop. So let me show you how to get started. You're going to want some 24 gauge wire, and you're going to cut a piece that's about 24 inches long. And you'll just use your regular wire cutter for that, and we'll have the complete instructions on the website. But to start out, you can use any earring hoop. I like the kind that has this hook on the back because it gives you a place to start the coiling. So if you wrap this around carefully here, and you can see I have a little bit of a loose coil, so I'm just going to use my fingernails to push that together. You could also use your chain nose pliers. So you just want to do a few wraps. Then you'll tighten it up a little bit. Okay, then you're going to start loading seed beads onto the wire. Now the trick about using these guys is you want to use the end of your wire to pick up the beads. So you just press right down into the bead. And a tip about using bead mats too, not only does it prevent your beads from rolling away, but the fibers of the bead mats also work with the beads to help them land whole side up. So you can see I just scooted them down on the wire here, and I left myself a little bit of a tail so that I have something to hold on to. Okay, so now I'm just going to gently coil this around. So the beads are already on there, and I'm using my thumb and my forefinger to just hold them in place. And you want to do that kind of loosely, because if you do it too tightly, you can cause some problems there. So keep your tension a little bit loose and coil it around. And you'll just keep going. Now you could cover the whole bead like I did on the earrings that I showed you when we started. You could cover the whole hoop, I mean. Or you can do something like this where you have a coiled section in the center. And this is a fun way to add color to your earring hoops. And it really gives it that hand beaded look that dresses it up. And you can see on this one, I just pulled the coil apart. So you would just carefully take your fingers and pull the coil, and then you can get some different effects. And this is a great way to bring in color. Now, when you are ready to finish, all you'll do is coil your wire around the end, just like you did at the beginning. Okay, and you'll trim it close, and then you'll bring your chain nose pliers and press that wire end right against the earring hoop, and you're good to go. So let me show you about the magatamas. These are the dagger style bead with the hole at the top, and they are directional. You can see how these I've loaded onto the wire are all facing the same direction. That's important because when you begin coiling, you'll want to wrap that around, and that will create the textured effect with the daggers. So bring this around and just gently coil it again, and you can see that pattern starting to develop there. And let me just trim this so that you can get a better look. As you coil it around, when the beads are facing the same direction, they make a really nice pine cone effect there. So let's take one more look at the finished earrings. And the necklace behind it has a kumihimo technique. Leslie Rogowski made this one, but she also used the coiling around the center there to create a focal bead. So these are some easy ways that you can get started with coiling seed beads to embellish your hoop earrings. I'm here with designer and author Candie Cooper with the Beadle and Design team. Welcome, Candie.
Hi, Katie.
Hey, we're talking about men's jewelry today.
I'm so excited.
Me too. It's a great project.
We're always making things for ourselves and our friends, but
Might as well include the men in our lives.
yeah,
Yeah.
men friends.
Yeah, I like this necklace.
Thank you. This is a fun necklace because it's really fast to make and it's also interchangeable. Like you can make it into a bracelet or a necklace just by
here.
doubling it over. I kind of showed you this a second ago.
Yeah.
Just double it over.
Ta-da,
Voila, bracelet.
Very versatile.
And my men jewelry idea started when I was watching Pirates of the Caribbean with Johnny Depp.
We get our inspiration everywhere.
all of his pirate jewelry. I was like, oh, I love it. So I actually used coins for the foundation and then built from there.
Okay.
And so
How do we get started?
I was going to say, The first thing you're going to do is I've got some coins right here. Some of them come with holes in them, or you can use an industrial hole punch to punch like the holes on either side like I have here. That's
Okay.
what we're going to use today.
And these look like they've been in your pocket a while. I like that.
Yeah, I just left the natural patina on them. Then we're going to use some heavy .024 diameter beading wire. And this, you know, whenever you're making things for men, you want to bump up the heavy gauges and
Make it a little tougher looking.
yeah, right.
Yeah, a
And
little
one-
more substance to it.
Right, and one way to do that is with our beading wire. So it's traditional beading wire, nylon coated. And then I've got some crimp tubes. And I'm using number 3 crimps with this, but if you just check the package on your beading wire, you can find out, you know, what size
Yeah.
crimp tubes or crimp beads you need.
Okay.
So I've already strung a bead and one of the crimp tubes on. And the next thing I'm going to do is grab a coin here, string it on, and then run the end of the beading wire through the crimp bead.
Okay.
If I can find it here. There we go.
I like the way you mix all the different metals together.
Thank you. I just, you know, I didn't want to overthink it. Like men.
Watch it now.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So anyway, then we're going to flat crimp this, and I like that too because that adds a little thickness to our design. And then I'm going to cut the wire. Because this is such a heavy diameter of beading wire, there's not much room for it to go through the bead. So you
Okay.
kind of have to bump it up flush. If you get really nervous, drop some super glue in the tube and then crimp it just to add some strength. Then the next thing we're going to do is trim, leaving about 3 inches. And string another crimp bead. And then we're going to attach a jump ring to the end of our lobster clasp.
I love those lobsters that have the open back. Too.
Yeah, they leave a lot of versatility there. And then we're going to run the beading wire back through the crimp,
Okay.
and then you have to dodge again the hole in the bead.
Because you don't want to pass through twice.
Right. And leave, oh, sorry.
That's okay. I think that's a good point. It's important to choose the crimp and the wire that works together.
Right. There we go. So sometimes you have to grab onto it and really, because it's so thick, like you have to give it a little
Yeah.
yank. Okay, then we're gonna leave a little bit of a hole and then seal it with the crimp.
All
Okay,
right.
and then we have our link. And you could put a bunch of beads or you can put just one like I did.
Yeah,
and
this
again,
looks great.
with the design, you know, I wanted to use something geometric because I felt like that was kind of, you know, not a lot of facets or sparkle. Okay, then I've gone ahead and cut some leather. And I'm using a few different colors. You can use brown, natural, black, whatever you have. And then you're gonna run this through.
Oh, through your loop that you made with the beading wire?
Yes.
Cool.
I just had to prep my lobster claw clasp because
Then it'll be ready when
it's
you need it.
ready.
Okay.
And then you're gonna fold it over about 1 inch. And then just take some kind of rhodium colored wire and give it a nice yank on either side.
So
And
you're
then-
just creating your own coil there to hold it together?
Yep.
Does it matter what gauge wire you use, do you think?
I don't think I like a 22 gauge. As
Okay.
long as you wrap it several times and give it nice tugs in between, you should be good to go.
Okay.
And then you're going to trim the ends and snip. And you can use your wire cutters to cut the leather too and get all of that extra fringe off of there. And then you'll come to the other end, and you could, like for this bracelet over here, you could make some knots along the strand. Or you can, if you're making the necklace, you would just come to the other end and shore up all of your strands.
So you just want to trim them flush? Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then run the leather through the jump ring, fold it over again.
Oh, and you're going to coil again.
Yeah,
Looks
And-
great.
thank you. And then
Quick.
Yeah, right? And the only thing is you just have to make sure that your lobster clasp is big enough to go through the thickness of the coin.
Because that's how it fastens.
Right, that's how it fastens, so let me show you that.
Sure.
And make sure, and sometimes like if your wires stick out a little bit, you can use your chain nose pliers to give it a flat crimp.
Yeah, sometimes I try to tuck the end in between the leather cords
Yeah.
too.
You don't want to have to give Band-Aids.
That's true.
Give your guy
wanna
some Band-Aids.
You don't want to give dangerous jewelry here.
Right. That would be bad.
All right. So
Not
to
a way to
fasten
score
it-
points.
No, not really.
So then to fasten it, you just bring, sorry, all my cords are going this way. Then you just bring your lobster clasp to the front, and that's how you clasp it.
This looks great. Let's
you.
take a look at the bracelet so we can see that knotting too, where you did just overhand knots.
Yes.
And we'll have pictures of these on our website if people want to recreate their own.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Candie.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and that's our show for today. Next time we explore custom creations when you just need to start from scratch. I hope you'll join us.
Instructions for today's projects, plus other ideas, techniques, and tutorials are available on the web at beadsbaublesandjewels.com. This is show 1808. If you enjoyed today's show and want to see more projects and great guests, download individual episodes for $2.99 each or order a complete DVD set of the entire Beads, Baubles and Jewels Series 1800 for $29.95 plus shipping and handling at beadsbaublesandjewels.com. Don't miss a single episode. Beads, Baubles and Jewels has been brought to you in part by Beading Daily, your jewelry making resource for how-to projects, books, magazines, DVDs, events, and online learning. BeadingDaily.com. Beadalon, a manufacturer of flexible bead stringing wires, memory wire, artistic wire, stringing materials, innovative findings, and tools to help you fashion your own jewelry. Beadalon.com. Dreamtime Creations, an online supplier of crystals, findings, and jewelry making supplies since 1989. Dreamtimecreations.com. Halcraft, jewelry component manufacturer. Halcraft.com.